Hi, I'm Jeff, and welcome to another video where I take a look at all the new comic books coming out on either December 8th or 9th, 2020, and I ask myself the question, what one new comic book would I buy this week if I could buy just one book? Now let's start off this week's video by looking back at last week's pick, and last week's pick was King in Black by Donnie Kates and Ryan Stegman. I got the premiere variant 2 per store here. I also got the secret variant right here that has the Thing in the center instead of the Hulk. I was glad to get my hands on these. So here's the question. Was this book worth picking up? And I say, yeah, totally. It was a good pick as my just one book pick of last week. It was a fantastic read. Null is here. Null is badass. The heroes of Earth are on their heels. It's going to be very interesting to see how all of this plays out over the next several months. So it's pretty exciting. I'm really excited to see what Donnie Kates has to bring us from King in Black, the main series. Now, did it have a ton of movement on the secondary market? Does it have a ton of spec potential? Not really, but it was a fantastic read. If you're looking for a book that has blown up on the secondary market and absolutely has some spec potential, you want to take a look at a book that came out this past week that I mentioned but was not my pick for last week, and that book is Daredevil number 25. This is the first appearance of Elektra as Daredevil, and this book is blowing up. This book is currently worth $50. It's selling regularly for $50 on eBay. That is before tax, that is before shipping. It is amazing. Why? Well, people, of course, are interested in this Elektra spec. And also, I mean, I had heard about this book being really, really good, but I'm not a big Daredevil fan, so I didn't pick it up, as with a lot of people. So the print run of this is low. So when this spec came out, when this appearance of Elektra as Daredevil came out, nobody was expecting it. People were scrambling to pick it up. There are just not that many of them out there, and the prices of these have gone through the roof. I am so lucky that I got my hands on this copy right here. I got it by the skin of my teeth, and I feel so fortunate. If you yourself were also fortunate enough to get your hands on this book, congratulations to you. This book is a home run. But if you missed out on it and you're interested in this book still, there is a second print that's coming out that will have Elektra on the cover as Daredevil. Now keep in mind, there are going to be way more of those printed than there were of this first printing. So it is nowhere near going to be as valuable, but it is going to be her first cover appearance as Daredevil. So there may be inherent value there. In fact, I have on my radar the opportunity to potentially pick up a 9.8 signed by the artist cover of the second print of this book for $100, which is actually a pretty good deal for any signed 9.8 book. So I'm considering picking it up. If you want more information about that, contact me on Instagram at Jeff_superscript, and I'll let you know what I know about all of that. So enough about last week's books. Let's now focus on this week's books. So we're going to start with look at some cover picks. Now, there are a lot of covers this week that I like, but in my cover pick section, I'm just going to focus on 4 because they're all similar in that they are Wonder Woman covers that come out this week, and they're all really great. The first one I want to mention is from The Flash, number 767. The artist is Nicholas Scott, and it's got this Gal Gadot, kind of like 1970s Wonder Woman Linda Carter vibe to it that I like a lot. I think it's really, really great. Now, it's my least favorite of the 4 I'm about to present to you. I'm actually presenting them to you from my least favorite to my favorite. But even as my least favorite, I still like it a lot. My next one that I like is Wonder Woman, number 768. This is by Joshua Middleton, a name that we've heard a lot in cover picks, and especially when it comes to Wonder Woman cover picks. And this one's no exception. This one really shows to me how Joshua Middleton doesn't have just one style to his art, and that he's really, really good no matter what style he's choosing, and this cover is fantastic. The next one I want to mention is Detective Comics number 1032. This is from one of my favorites, Art Germ, Stanley Lau. This book was almost my pick. I like it a lot. If you've been paying attention to my videos, you know that I have a mini little Art Germ collection going in my collection, my PC, because I just like his art style a lot, and this is a perfect example of what I like about his art. I think it's great. But although it wasn't my pick, it was really close. The one that was my pick this week is also from Wonder Woman 768, but it is the Adam Hughes variant, this one right here. I just like it a lot. I like the energy of it. I like the pose. I like the expression. I think it's really dynamic how it looks like the lasso is probably, she's looking right at me, and it looks like that lasso is wrapped right around me, and I'm going to be telling her the truth very, very soon. And I like the energy of the rocks in the foreground that are out of focus, so there's this nice depth of field effect and how the rocks are breaking underneath her feet. It's just a really, really, really cool image from an excellent, excellent artist, Adam Hughes. That's why this book and this cover is my Wonder Woman and my overall pick for cover pick of this week. Okay, now let's start looking at new books that are coming out this week as far as new #1 issues. The first one that I want to point out to you is Red Sonja, The Price of Blood. Now this book has some cool covers, and if you're a Red Sonja fan, you're probably going to be into it. I'm not particularly a Red Sonja fan, so it's not for me, but maybe it is for you. Along the same lines as Red Sonja is another book that comes out this week. It's The Chimerian, The Frost Giant's Daughter. And I just want to read the very beginning of it. It has a nice Momoko cover here that I'm going to show to you first, and some other covers I'm going to mention in a second. It says, intended for mature audiences, Robert E. Howard's Conan is brought to life uncensored. Discover the true Conan, unrestrained, violent, and sexual. Read the story as he intended. So, if you want a violent, sexual Conan, this is the book for you. And it has nice covers. I like this one cover right here that is from... Let's see. Oh, yes. It is from an artist named Jay Anasleto. And I just think it's a really nice cover from here. And then there's also this one, which is an homage cover to something that a lot of you might recognize right away. But if you don't recognize it, I'm going to show it. It's one of my favorites of all time. And it is this Wolverine #1, which I'm happy to say I have here in a 9.8, although it is from PGX, and in typical PGX fashion, it is try to be nice to it because it's a 9.8. It's not sealed. See, not great. So this book will be going to CGC to get regraded. Hopefully it'll keep its 9.8. We will see this book again sometime in the future in one of my Test Your Comic Book Grading Skills videos. I'll put a little link to one of those right here. If for some reason you're here on my channel and you haven't seen one of those yet, you really should check it out. The next one I want to point out to you is a new book that comes out this week. It's Vampirella, The Dark Powers. It seems like these heroes need Vampirella's help to save the universe. It actually sounds like a pretty interesting story. It has some cool covers, and also I think has the potential to have a lot of first appearances in it. So it might be something you want to consider from a spec perspective, especially if you're a Vampirella fan. The next book I want to mention is Heroes at Home from Marvel Comics. Now these, I believe, are probably in the vein. There were some like mini comic strippy kind of things that Marvel was putting out of what superheroes were doing during the lockdown in the pandemic. And it was kind of fun and kind of cute. It's actually not my thing. I'm not particularly interested in the content that they've been showing of it so far. What is interesting to me is when comic books reflect what's going on in the world currently. One example of that I'm a big fan of is this book right here. This is my Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2, number 36. This is the 9/11, September 11th tribute comic. And I love this book because it reflects a time in our history. Now, I think that this book is going to be, from a spec perspective and secondary market perspective, more valuable than the Heroes at Home book. But I still think the Heroes at Home book is a nice, interesting bit of history in comic book form. It's something you could buy and potentially show to your children or your grandchildren sometime to help kind of show them what was happening during this pandemic, this amazing time in all of our lives. So something you might want to pick up just for its historical context alone. The next book I want to mention is King in Black, Namor, Number one, this is, I believe, a 5-issue miniseries that's kind of a throwback story to when Namor and some other characters were teenagers and how that ties into the current storyline with King in Black. Frankly, I don't get it. I don't know that people were necessarily clamoring for a teenage Namor backstory to King in Black. Makes me wonder if they'll drop in something really valuable piece of spec nugget in there somewhere just to mess with all of us, because I'm just not really interested at all. If you're interested, and if you end up reading this book, please let me know what you think about it down in the comments. The next book I want to mention to you is something that is interesting to me. It's Batman Black and White. It's got some really cool covers, something you might want to check out there. And it's essentially an anthology series. And listen, good writers writing stuff for Batman is always really great. I wasn't interested in this at first, but the more I think about it, the more interested in it I am. I do think I am going to go ahead and pick it up. I'm interested. I'm definitely interested. The next one I want to mention is Dark Knight's Death Metal, The Last Stories of the DC Universe. Now, this one is especially interesting to me. Now, I know I've mentioned before that if you're not currently reading Death Metal, it's going to be tough to just jump on board. You're probably not going to be particularly interested at this point. But this is another one of those that I understand why it's a one-shot. Even if you're not reading the main series, this could be a really interesting read. The concept is, like, we've all asked ourselves the question, what would we do if we had one night or 1 hour or 1 day or whatever left on Earth and the Earth was going to end? Well, that's essentially what these superheroes are asking themselves, and we get to see what their answers are because they think, this is it, we've lost. How are they going to spend their last moments in existence? I am really interested in reading this storyline, and I'm genuinely excited. I definitely recommend you consider, if you've ever wondered what you would do with your last moments on Earth and you're curious what these superheroes might as well, I definitely recommend checking it out. Next, I'm going to point out to you Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Flashpoint. This is similar to a book featuring Wonder Woman that we talked about last week. It's kind of, in my estimation, DC's version of a what-if story, but this is a what-if branch from the Flashpoint storyline. If you're a fan of Flash and Flashpoint, this is probably something you want to check out because I think what-ifs are pretty cool and pretty interesting from a different perspective. The next book I want to mention is actually a number 0. It's Lock and Key / Sandman, Helen Gone, number 0. It's basically a reprint of stories that give you the back information that you need to understand how they are bridging together the Lock and Key universe with the Sandman universe. And it sounds pretty interesting. So if you're a Sandman fan, and or a Lock and Key fan, but you don't have the context for how they're going to bridge these two stories together, buy this issue number 0. It's going to give you the information you need so that you have the context to understand how these two worlds are connected. Next, I want to mention a book called Homesick Pilots that's coming out this week. It's a book that I kept seeing on my radar, and I wanted to be interested in it, but it never really grabbed my information. It seems like it's kind of like a teen horror kind of thing, but like horror light. I'm not really interested in it, but if you are, please tell me down in the comments why you're interested in it and why I might be interested in it or why I should be interested in it as well. Next, I want to mention a book that was interesting to me. It's called Sam and His Talking Gun. It's basically about a revenge story about a guy who's basically driven insane by the person he wants to get revenge on. So he's going to go get revenge with his buddy, his talking gun. So it sounds like it could be a pretty cool revenge story about an insane guy. Something you might want to consider checking out. The next 2 books I want to mention are both written by writer Cullen Bunn. The first one is called Bitesized, and it's basically these kids open some toy robots for Christmas, so it's a good Christmas-themed book if you're looking for something, and these robots run amok. It could be a fun little story, especially with Christmas coming up and something you want to consider. And Cullen Bunn is an artist that I think a lot of people respect and a lot of people have enjoyed his writing, so you might want to pick it up just for that reason as well. He has another book also coming out this week called Piecemeal that sounds like it's basically these kids, or high school kids, are spending the night in a haunted house and there's a killer that wants to kill them and use their body parts to help kind of like resurrect themselves, the killer resurrect themselves. Sounds like it could be a horror movie down the line or something like that, so it might have some spec potential if the story is good enough, or it might just be kind of too cliche to ever see anything past this comic book, but something you might be interested in checking out. This next one is one that sounds pretty interesting and it has great covers. It's called The Encoded #1, and it's basically kind of sort of about an AI that runs amok. The description, look it up if you're interested yourself. The description is actually pretty interesting, and these covers make this title especially interesting to me. This is one that if I were you and you see it in the comic book store, I'd pick it off the rack and flip through it a little bit. And if it looks interesting to you, I might consider picking it up. It looks pretty cool. The next one I want to mention is also kind of a holiday-themed book you might consider picking up for yourself or for your kids. It is DC's Very Merry Multiverse. I think that's all you need to know right there. Looks like it's a fun book for the Christmas, maybe a nice little stocking stuffer for your kid. If you're a comic book collector and you want to get your kid interested in your hobby with you, this might be a good way to get them started on that. The next one I want to mention is a book called Postal. And this book, the description is really short, so let me read it to you. It is from Image Top Cow. It says, Return to Eden, Wyoming, in 2 thrilling tales from Top Cow's talent hunt winners. Can Sheriff Roy Magnum really maintain order in a town full of criminals? Plus, a glimpse inside the mind of Molly, Eden's own serial-killing boogeyman. This one is putting off the alarms for my spec potential, radar. But it's a long shot one. So if you're interested in a long shot spec potential, this might be one you might consider. But when we're talking about new titles that come out this week, ones that I am interested in picking up, if I was going to buy a new title that starts this week, I would buy Sword #1 from Marvel Comics. Here's the description. One giant leap for mutant kind. The mutant nation of Krakoa has quickly become a major force on the world stage, but why stop there? Krakoa has relaunched the Sentient World Observation and Response Detectorate, a fully independent organization dealing with all things extraterrestrial on behalf of all of Earth. Al Ewing and Valerio Schmidi, the team behind Empire, bring us the tale of mutant kind looking to do for the galaxy what Krakoa did for the planet. So the fact that Al Ewing is bringing this to us, the fact that it is mutant-based, which I'm a big X-Men fan, but I'm not reading any X books right now. So I think I'm going to check out this one. I think it might get me back into X books a little bit, hopefully. Also, there's supposed to be a future of Sword in the MCU. So this may be kind of warming that up, and this may have, tie-ins to what the future might hold as far as the MCU. We'll see. But I find this one particularly interesting, and so I'm going to pick this one up, and I'll check it out. Okay, so that's all of the #1s that come out this week. I'm now going to talk about some books that are on my radar as books that come out this week that I just want to bring to your attention. The first one is Captain Marvel #24, and I've said this before. Captain Marvel seems to be one of those books that they keep dropping little things into, and one of these days, similar to kind of like that Elektra as Daredevil spec, I think one of these days, one of those little spec, breadcrumbs that they are dropping off in Captain Marvel are really going to pay off. And the story's good too. So always keep Captain Marvel on your spec radar. Seems like Marvel has a plan there. That's interesting. The next one I want to mention is Star Wars #9. I've mentioned this book before. I'm really a big fan of the storytelling that's taking place in this era of the Star Wars mythos, or this era of the story. But what's curious about this one, in particular, this issue, is that there seems to be an unusual amount of covers for it. I think there's 4 of them in total. And for a book that's not necessarily flying off the shelves, why are there so many different cover variants for this issue? Something that's kind of raising red flags for me, something you might want to check out if you're in the comic shop this week. The next one I want to mention is Strange Academy number 6. This is a book that I keep talking myself out of buying, but I really should be buying. It seems like it's pretty good. People were really into it because of their own kind of ideas about its spec potential. They were saying it's going to be a great Disney Plus animated show down the line, but there's no talks about that at all. People just, it's in their mind that it's going to be that. But I also hear some of the story synopsises or synopses, and I'm like, this actually does sound pretty interesting. So if you're on the Strange Academy trail, congratulations to you. Let me know what you think about it down in the comments. And if you're not, I don't think it's too late to jump on. It might be actually pretty good and worth checking out. Maybe one of these days I'll finally talk myself into picking it up before it's too late. The next one I want to mention is from Boom Studios, and it's Origins number 2. This is just a personal pick. I picked up the first issue recently. I haven't even read it yet, but every time I read the synopsis of this story, it sounds interesting to me. So I mention it to you because it's interesting to me, and just for that reason only. Next, I want to mention Seven Secrets number 5. I have been in the Seven Secrets from the beginning. I found it really, really interesting at first, and then with the second issue, I still found it really interesting. And then it started to kind of wane for me in issues 3 and 4, and I'm like, okay, guys, let's get into it. Let's get into what Seven Secrets is going to be as a series, please. And I think that issue number 5 is going to be that moment where we really find Seven Secrets hitting its stride. We'll see, because if it doesn't, I'm probably going to be out of it after this issue. All right, so now we are going to do one of our little mini sections that's probably going to lead you to exactly what my pick is going to be this week. And this mini section is, once again, we bring back Kates' Corner. And in Kates' Corner this week, we have 2 books, once again, that we are going to be taking a look at. The first one is Venom, number 31. Now, Venom has been a really great story written by Donnie Kates. I was never really a big Venom fan, but Donnie Kates has brought me to Venom, and I've really been enjoying it. Also, with all the King in Black story stuff that's happening right now, and the King in Black first and foremost being so focused as kind of like a, with having its origins in the Venom backstory, I'm very interested to see what's going to be happening in the Venom storyline. Although after reading Venom 30, I hope this isn't a situation where we have Eddie Brock as Venom in 2 different stories happening at the same time, where you're like, wait, are there 2 of this character in the universe? Like, how do these stories work together, or are they totally working separately? Considering the fact that they're both from Donnie Kates, I imagine that they will work together really well, but coming from what I read at the end of 30, I'm like, what is going to be the connection between the Venom book and King in Black book moving forward right now? I'm interested in finding out what that is, but also just in general, like I said, I like Donnie Kates and I'm liking this Venom title, so I'm looking forward to Venom 31. But that brings me to my final book for today, and it is the book that I would pick this week if I could buy just one book. And that book is crossover number 2. Now, some of you might be thinking, Jeff, why crossover number 2? Good question. This was a week where there wasn't a standout for me. There wasn't one book in particular. I was almost like, well, maybe I just won't make a pick this week. I'll just be like, well, I picked this book or this book or this book or this book. There's a lot of great books this week, but nothing that like jumped out at me as the one. So why did I pick this one? Well, it's because I thought the first issue was really, really good. I also thought that it has a ton of potential moving forward. Now, once again, I don't want to give any spoilers, but if you read crossover number 1, I think you know what I'm talking about. The last panel shows a child's drawing of a character that we're all familiar with. And if this character makes an appearance in this book, it's going to be pretty mind-blowing. And people have been talking about the potential of this of characters from different, like from DC and Marvel, from different books, showing up in crossover for a while. And for the longest time, I was like, I just don't know how they're going to do it. But it seems like it might be possible. And we got our first hint of it here with a cover that was released recently by Donnie Kates, and it shows crossover number 3 here, with art done by Todd McFarlane, with Spawn there on the cover. Now, this is pretty cool. Now, of course, this is a much easier sell, considering that crossover is coming from Image Comics. Of course, you can get a character like Spawn to appear on the cover and potentially even in the book for crossover. But that just seems kind of like, it seems fun. I kind of like the idea of crossover being an opportunity to be a melting pot for all of these different characters. And hopefully the appearance of Spawn on this cover is kind of going to be hinting at things to come in this book, where we get to see all of our favorite comic book superheroes kind of coexisting in a common world. That's pretty exciting. In addition to that, part of the reason that crossover number 2 is my pick is that you might end up seeing crossover again as my pick moving down the line, because Donnie Kates, he's got a little bit of a hype machine going to him, and he tweeted out recently this tweet right here where he says, "Retailers, hey, I don't bullshit about this stuff. So please believe me when I tell you that issues 3 and especially issue 6 of crossover are going to be big, like really big, crazy big. Order accordingly. They will sell out." Now, somebody challenged Donnie Kates later on in his tweet and basically said, "Yo, Donnie, why are you hyping up your stuff like that, man? All you're going to do is you're going to have these damn speckers going out and scooping up these books and keeping people like us who just want to read them from being able to get them." And in my head, I was like, well, then pre-order your own book, guy. Just get it pulled, and your comic book store will take care. They'll order it for you, and they'll take care of you, and it'll be no problem. But then Donnie Kates also responded. I was like, the reason why I hype a book like this, the reason why I go out on Twitter and I say, get issues 3 and 6, are I want to see comic shops make money. And I believe that because I know he used to work in one. He might even used to own a comic shop. So I believe it when he says that he wants to see comic book shops make money. I also think he wants to make money, and the more copies of this that are ordered, the more money he will make. Absolutely. So there is some selfish, self-serving motivation there, I'm sure. But I also think that Donnie Kates, he's enthusiastic, and I don't think it's just complete hyperbole, and I don't think that it's complete BS. So I just think that this series has so much potential, and I'm just not only from writer Donnie Kates, but just in concept as well. I really, really hope that it reaches all that potential, not only with this week's issue number 2, but with next month's issue number 3 that Donnie Kates mentions specifically here, and then moving forward with issues 4, 5, and as he says, especially 6. So I mentioned it as my pick for this week because it's a book that is absolutely on my radar. It is a book that I'm absolutely laser focused on to see what comes next. So in a week where there's lots of books that I find interesting, but none of them stood out particularly as being the one book that I would pick if I could only pick one book, this one brought itself to the forefront in its potential. And that's why crossover number 2 is my pick this week if I could buy just one book. Now, as always, I'm really interested in hearing what your pick would be this week if you would buy just one book. Please put it down in the comments and let me know what your pick would be. And if you don't have one pick, if you're similar to me this week where you're like, well, I don't have just one pick, but I've got a couple different books that I like this week, put down what you like in the comments as well. Put down what you're picking up and what you're buying. I'm really interested in hearing back from all of you about what is interesting to you this week. If you like this video, likes are always appreciated. I say it every time, and something I've been saying recently is a reminder that likes and comments tell YouTube that people are engaging and enjoying my videos. So for the 50 or so of you that are watching my video every week, thank you so much. Please, let's see 50 comments. Let's see 50 likes. Let's tell YouTube, hey, bring people to the channel. I really enjoy doing this content for you, and if you enjoy watching it, a comment and a like will help kind of reward me for doing it. So I would appreciate that. If you are watching this video for the first time, this is the first one of my videos that you're watching, I mean to say, thank you so much for checking this out. I highly recommend you hit the subscribe guy right here and hit the notification bell so that you're informed when I release new content, like my Test Your Comic Book Rating Skill videos, which if you're submitting to CBS or CGC or CBCS, click this video and maybe we can work out something for my channel. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you. See you in the next video.